Hi, my name is Rachel Bella, and this is my presentation recording on the case study. So, looking at the problem that we had with the case study, it was that computer programs that were purchased with fundraising funds by the school are being copied and given to other teachers by the school librarian. An experienced teacher in the building had concerns about this because it's a clear violation of copyright laws because they are taking the program from the company that they bought from with only one copy, and then the librarian, is making extra copies on blank CDs. Um, this issue was brought to the principal's attention by the experienced teacher. The librarian does not think copying the programs for the other teachers is an issue. She thinks that the teacher that has the issue with the copyright laws is the issue, not the copyright laws themselves. And she sees it as an actual good thing that she's doing this because she is saving the school money. And others not see it as an issue, nor does the PTA president, as she came in and actually helped the librarian with these copies. The legal and ethical issues presented with this. She is copying and sharing computer programs, and that's a clear violation of copyright laws. In our previous modules, we learned that there can be fines up to $250,000 if computer software is involved. And so if the company were to find out, they could have some serious consequences with this. The principal, now being aware of the situation, warrants action on his end because knowing that the copyright laws are being violated in his building, he now needs to step up and be responsible for this. And it could become very awkward as he wants to maintain his status quo with faculty and parents. Being a teacher who did not come from the small town and he has now the approval of everyone, he might not want to ruffle everyone's feathers and put a dent in that. The librarian, now knowing that this is a violation of copyright laws, also puts pressure on the principal to ensure that she takes back all the copies that she made and distributed to the other teachers and does not make any more. So basically, it comes down to copyright laws are being violated by the school librarian, who is aware she is in violation but is refusing to stop making copies of the computer program. So, looking at all the facts, the people that are involved directly are the principal, Mr. Sample, the librarian, Mrs. Lynn. She's not concerned about the copyright laws. Classroom teacher, Mrs. Brandon, she is concerned about the copyright laws. And then PTA, so some parents. This is in a rural school district, and it's called St. Regis School. The program that's being used is software that was used for the school computer lab, which was bought and purchased with funds from fundraising from the school and that the PTA put on. The software is used for multiple grade levels, and it is used inside the school computer lab. So, the conflict could be damaging to stakeholders such as the principal, teacher, PTA, and potentially the Board of Education. All have an important stake in the outcome, but the principal and the librarian have the biggest, mainly because both of them are fully aware of copyright laws being violated, but yet nothing has been done to put a stop to it. And we have also learned that if you are knowingly violating copyright laws, once again, there can be huge monetary damages, such as the Houston Independent School District, when they were knowingly violating copyright laws over and over again, and they ended up owing the company $9.2 million. So, big deal. Not all relevant stakeholders have been consulted. The PTA, this has not been discussed with them yet, and no one on the Board of Education has been brought in through the loop. The superintendent, no one is aware of it other than the librarian, to a few teachers in the building, and the principal. We need to still know if all staff are aware of copyright laws and regulations and whether or not the librarian collected all made copies of the program. So we need to know if everyone is aware that copyright laws are a serious thing that need to be taken seriously, or if they just think it's something you hear about and it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect them. And we also need to know if the librarian collected the copies that she was asked to pick up, that she had copied and gave to the other teachers to use. Options and possible consequences. So looking at this, we have a number of ways that we could approach and handle this. Option number one would be to take no action. We told her to stop. She heard it. She knows it's a problem. Move on, forget about it. Just hope and assume she's going to do the right thing. Number 2 is extreme, and it would be to notify the program that the company of the program that makes it, notify them that this school is in complete violation of copyright laws knowingly, and that they're making copies of it and giving it out to other teachers. And also to notify the school board that the copyright laws and policies are knowingly being broken, and then completely shut down and close the computer lab. Option number 3 would be to review the handbook, code of conduct, board policies on copyright laws with all staff. So essentially having a staff PD over this, and also sharing this information from the staff PD with the PTA, and by either inviting them to also join for the PD or providing paper copies. And then sit down with Mrs. Lynn to let her know that violating these will not be tolerated, and there will be consequences leading to termination if necessary. Option number 4 is to require all staff to complete an online training or seminar over copyright laws in schools before they are allowed access back to the computer lab. All teachers, not just those involved, every single teacher in the building, to ensure that they are up to date on copyright laws and policies and understand how they work. And then sitting down with Mrs. Lynn, putting her in probation with the computer lab and its duties. Number 5 is to inform the school board of the situation and how copyright laws are knowingly being violated, remove Mrs. Lynn from her duties involving the computer lab and all software, so she could no longer be in charge of purchasing software, distributing, none of that. She would just be completely cut from all responsibilities involving that. Looking at the options that we have and what we can do is we are going to assess the options. So looking at option 1, a con of this would be that it would lead to serious copyright issues continuing to be broken, putting the school and staff at an even greater risk for serious repercussions. So obviously, as the Houston was used as an example earlier, $9.2 million for that school district for knowingly breaking and violating copyright laws. So that could be a huge issue that would then fall not only just on the school, but also on the superintendent, the board, any other schools in the districts might be looked into then to see if they are also doing it. So there could be some huge things that come of that involve stakeholders that are not just within the school. So it could really spread like wildfire, and not necessarily in a good way, and it would definitely ruin the principal's reputation that he had worked so hard to get. Option number 2, a con of this is that it could result in serious reprimand from the company and the board, and the PTA would not approve of the lab closing. I don't see that going over smoothly, considering it was opened via funds raised partly through the PTA, and the reputation of the principal would definitely be damaged. A pro, though, would be that the copyright issue would be fixed, but we have to ask ourselves at what cost is fixing this. There has to be some sort of a happy medium. Number 3, a con of this is that Mrs. Lynn might not be happy and she may quit her job, and the positive reputation with staff and parents may be ruined for the principal. A pro, though, is that staff all would be informed on copyright laws, as well as PTA members, and the issue would hopefully end. Option number 4, a con of that would be that Mrs. Lynn might not be happy once again with the decision and could still refuse to follow the rules. Staff also might have issues and not be happy about having to complete a mandatory training before returning to the computer lab with their students, especially those who were not involved in this at all. And then a pro, though, would be that all staff would be informed on copyright and Mrs. Lynn would stop breaking copyright. Option number 5, a con would be that Mrs. Lynn would most likely be unhappy, your reputation may be damaged, and the school board may not see the issue or appreciate you bringing it to them. Assuming, because they might see it as you're the principal of the school, you should be able to handle this situation on your own instead of just immediately running to the board and the superintendent to help fix it. A pro, though, would that the copyright violations would stop. So after looking at all of those, the next step would be to figure out which option we're going to choose, and we're going to go with the best option, which for this I believe would be option 3, because it allows for all staff and PTA to become informed around copyright laws. It communicates to all staff and PTA that the district policies involving copyright laws, so they can realize that it's not just on a bigger level, that the district themselves have these policies and in place for copyright also. It lets Mrs. Lynn know how serious the breaking of the copyright law is. She gets to keep her job unless she chooses to quit, or eventually would need terminated if she chooses to not stop copying the material. All stakeholders can receive more information on copyright laws without singling out Mrs. Lynn unless she chooses to speak out during PD. So this also helps protect her in a sense of not singling her out and making it more personalized. It's just more of like, these are the facts, these are the laws, these are the policies, these are the things that we need to make sure that we are doing and following to make sure that we are complying with them, instead of just going in and just completely throwing her under the bus and saying, well, we're doing this because Mrs. Lynn refused to. And it just seems more professional to do it this way. The implementation of this. So what would be done is a letter would be typed up explaining the importance and understanding of copyright laws. That would go along with the PD presentation that would be available for all staff and the PTA, and who might have more questions around policies, laws, and regulations. So along with the PowerPoint or Google slide presentation that would be copied for them, there would also be just a quick like Q&A of copyright laws and policies and how does it affect me in the school. And as mentioned before, that would be for all staff as well as the PTA. They'd be invited to be for the presentation live, or they could receive paper packets to make sure that they're on board and they understand also. And then due to her already being knowledgeable around it, Mrs. Brandon is who I would ask to present the PD to staff, because she clearly recognized the violation right away and she was clearly knowledgeable on the topic. So I believe having her there to present it to PD would be good, because she's clearly already in the loop with a handful of it and understands it. And then there would be a sit down with Mrs. Lynn, and it would just be the principal and her. Others would be brought in down the road if she didn't agree to things and things got really ugly. But just going in on a comfort level of just like a one-on-one, and it would be a discussion. It would not be pointing fingers or accusing her. It would just be, hey, can you see now like why copying these is wrong and how we could have some serious like issues coming from it. And just discussing it with her, and kind of also helping the principal then to feel her out to see where she's at with things. If she does not agree with things, she'll provide a number of options, such as a probation period where she would have to be monitored with her lab and the use of her buying the software and things for the school. Or she could be asked to give up those duties completely, and we would put somebody else in charge of the computer lab and the purchasing of the softwares and all of that. Termination would be completely the absolute last step. If she were upset and wanted to quit, that's on her own terms, but we would not really bring up termination right at the bat. We're not going to just sit down and be like, well, if you don't quit this, then we're going to terminate you. It would be a discussion. There would be lots of steps in place before we went to that. So in conclusion, we want to make sure that the policies and laws are openly communicated and discussed with stakeholders. We want everyone to be aware of these laws, policies at the upper level as well as at our district level. So reviewing the board policies, reviewing the handbook, student code of conduct, all of those things, just to give everyone a refresher, because it is something that we all can use a reminder on. If Plan 3 does not work, more stakeholders will need to be brought in and involved, such as the superintendent or board members, just whoever, wherever this situation kind of warranted that going. And then option 5 would be implemented if Plan 3 does not work out. The goal is to make sure that copyright laws are followed and continued, and monitoring takes place to ensure that this issue does not happen again. Ideally, if we are all informed and these laws are communicated to everybody and everyone has an understanding of it, and we continue to monitor, this should be able to easily be prevented and never be an issue that we have to deal with again. And that is my presentation.